All right, Philip. So super excited to come on court and actually explain and really demonstrate what I want you to do. So the first thing is you're a tall guy. We've got to get you with a wider stance and more knee bend. And so it's amazing how wide Nadal is with his legs and his knee bend during the point. You are very close with your feet. Your legs are too straight. And it makes you wobbly actually as you hit, and you're not going to be able to have the stability, especially when you're having to move. You're not going to have the stability on those shots. So the first thing you're going to have to do is really just practice, and I've got the Topspin Pro here, whether it's an open stance, whether it's a neutral stance, you've got to practice. Let's say you're 6'5". I don't know how tall you are, but you're obviously taller than I am. I'm sorry, who's the legendary coach? Nick Bollettieri, sorry. Nick Bollettieri talks about how your athletic stance should be a foot shorter, 12 inches shorter than your standing height. So you should be down like this. If you look at Djokovic's return of serve, and he's like this, you've got to go out and start playing where, I mean, that's going to help your backhand, it's going to help everything. It's going to help your volley, it's going to help your serve and volley game to be able to change direction. You just need to get your feet, rather than like this, you need to get your feet super wide and your knees bent. I tell my students to pretend like they're sumo wrestlers, right? It's like, I don't know what a sumo wrestler does, but I know that they have their feet wide for the same reasons, right? Low, getting leverage, getting power. So you need to just practice being wide with your stance and your knees bent. If you can just go out and do that, that will set the stage for everything else to be right. Remember, grip, body, swing. So we have to get the body right. And then you can get farther below the ball, and you can get more topspin, you'll be more explosive, you can do everything, right? It's gonna be better. So athletes need a low center of gravity, they need stability, they need width between their legs. So get your feet wide. Get your feet wide here. Don't be like this. So the next thing was the turn. So you remember you were turning like this and your wrist was very flat and the strings were facing down in front of you. Where my hand was higher, my whole arm was higher, and my strings were facing off to the right. So you're gonna have to practice getting really wide, and you've gotta start feeling your strings facing off to your right. So when you turn, get this. Get your strings over to the right. Higher turn and get your strings more to the right. You just don't have as far to drop as I do, and you don't actually have as big a swing. Most players, and when I say most, I don't mean 60%, I mean 99.9% of tennis players have too large of a swing when they don't have the right size swing. You don't have the right size swing, your swing is too small. You actually don't produce as much racket speed as you could because your swing is too small. It's too low, it's here. You can use a bigger swing and you'll still have a small swing. That's how small your swing is currently. So I want you to lift your racket higher, but the focus really needs to be point your strings off to the right. Instead of this wrist position that you then have to change. I understand that you have what's called a lag forehand or what's called a pre-stretch. I grew up calling it a pre-stretch forehand, where you pre-stretch the forearm and sure, you can accelerate, but your swing is too small and you could use more gravity assisted acceleration and still do the pre-stretch. So with the wide stance, your turn is higher, your strings off to the right. So I want you to film yourself from the back and just see, wow, my stance is wider, and you'll be able to feel that one easily. If you just start playing tennis like a sumo wrestler, you're gonna be able to feel the difference right away. When you turn, look to see that your racket's higher, and you can just compare it to the video that you sent me, and get your strings pointing off to your right. That's gonna set the stage for more consistency because there's not gonna be as much play in the wrist. Yes, it's okay to have the lag forehand, but I don't think you're missing racket speed from the standpoint of, I shouldn't say racket speed. Yeah, I could say racket speed. I don't think you have as much power as you can. Power and speed are different, obviously. I think you can have a more stable wrist, which will actually lead to more consistent shot over and over again. Now, when you feet wide, feet over, hit, and you drop the racket lower, I don't think you're gonna have to make, and I'm gonna show you this from the side too, as violent a turn with your left hand here. It's a little hard to see from the back. I am gonna show you from the side. But I want your left hand closer to the net than the contact. As you saw when you were hitting, this left hand was pulling back and the contact was closer to the net than your left hand. I want you to hit with your left hand more in front, actually in front of the contact. It's going to keep your body more stable. It's actually a power source. When you stop the body, the arm accelerates. So a lot of people feel like you got to pull and rotate the body. That will actually not lead to the most racket speed. The most racket speed is kind of like a catapult. When you rotate and then stop, right? Law of conservation of momentum, it'll turn and something else will accelerate, and the racket will actually accelerate because the body slows down and the energy has to go somewhere, and it actually goes into the arm. Think of two people holding hands roller skating, right? And so you're going to whip somebody, right? Let's say you're there with your girlfriend and you're going, and all of a sudden you stop to whip her forward and make her go around the rink faster. You have to slow down in order for her to speed up. You can't speed her up and whip her forward without slowing down. So the energy has to come somewhere, right? So your arm is kind of the girlfriend, right? As you rotate and you stop, that's actually what will help accelerate the racket. This is a big one. We'll be able to see this more easily from the side. When you're doing this, you want your head locked in. You were looking forward over the net. One of the ways you can practice this is imagine you have a glass of water on your head. And I'm going to move this just so I can actually swing. I want you to watch how my head does not move. See this? See how my head isn't moving and my body is just rotating under my head? You can see how still. I'm not doing this. You're not seeing the back of my head. You can see my cheek. And at contact, you saw, and I was not demonstrating that. That's actually a dummy video that I make of my forehand that I use whenever somebody wants to see their forehand, have a forehand comparison. So I didn't make that video for you. That's just my forehand. And you could see the difference between my head and your head. So at contact, your head needs to be looking this way and still. When your head moves and your body is rotating, you're going to pull so far across your body, and that was the next thing we're going to talk about. You're going to pull so far across your body, you're going to shank the ball, you're going to pull the ball left, you're going to hit short too often. As I just mentioned, after you hit the ball, your racket needs to go this way. So what I like to have people do is when they're contacting, obviously my non-hitting hand is in front of contact. When you're contacting, what I like to have people do is just move their racket 12 inches. So I ask people to just put the racket here and then just move it up a foot. Set it here, move it up a foot, right? Set it here, move it up a foot, or a half a meter, whatever you're used to. I don't know. But you're just here. I know a half a meter is more than a foot, but the idea is simple. From here to here. Most people think that the racket's supposed to go left. It's not. Topspin is a vertical spin. You only get a vertical spin with a vertical swing. And so you can't be swinging across and get topspin. You need, during the contact, to be going this way. I don't like this finish. It's okay. I mean, if Roger Federer wants to finish that way, I'm fine. What I mean by that is I don't like when amateurs use that finish because I don't believe it's the best way for amateur players to have the most consistency and accuracy. So what I like them to do is go this way so that's more of an Nadal finish where they're going more up as they hit the ball. Again, my left hand was up high and out in front of contact, and the upward swing, you can see, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, that ball is spinning. The upward swing ends up in the left hand higher than eye level. Rather than spinning across, going down kind of like you're putting a sword in a sheath, I do not think that is going to be, I actually know, that is not going to lead to you hitting the most consistent, accurate, and the forehands with the most amount of depth control. Most of your balls, just for the way you're hitting, most of your balls look like they're going to land around the service line. Aiming higher, lifting more, using those legs, as we talked about, getting lower, getting below the ball, is all going to culminate into hitting that ball with more depth. So get your feet wider, knees bent. When you turn higher and really focus on the strings facing off to your right. You're going to keep your head super still at contact with the knees bent. And then you can actually lift up as you hit the ball, kind of like you're picking up a box or like a heavy treasure chest. You got to get low. Your head stays super still, left hand in front, not pulling back. We're looking at the ball. I mean, it's going to be hard to look at the ball if your left arm's pulling back. Keep that left arm in front. We're going to swing up after contact, and we're going to finish super high.